Welcome in, everyone, to this deep dive, this time into the Lean CEO. We're going to unpack some real-world stories here, and these are about leaders who took lean thinking, beyond just efficiency, like weaving it into their company's cultures.
Yeah, it's interesting. The book really showcases a side of lean that's, I think, often gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
We see lean and we think, okay, tools, processes, all that. But this book, it's about fostering respect for people, like really building a culture of, that continuous learning and improvement.
Okay, you've got my attention already. I mean, the book teases some pretty intriguing stories, like one CEO gets bronchitis, ends up transforming the entire company. Another CEO takes their team to a Toyota factory all the way in Japan. And then there's this one tale about, get this, lean principles helping you win your office March Madness pool. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but I'm intrigued.
I think those stories, they really highlight how deeply ingrained these principles can become, right? It's not just like, oh, we're doing lean now, check the box. It impacts everything from the factory floor to your March Madness pool.
Yeah.
Wild stuff.
Right. So before we dive into all these stories, let's set the stage a little bit. So lean, obviously inspired by the Toyota production system. Are we talking just manufacturing here, though?
Well, Toyota was definitely the pioneer, right?
Yeah.
But this book, it explores how those ideas are being applied way beyond manufacturing. Healthcare, government, even the world of startups.
Okay, interesting. Now, you mentioned respect for people as a core lean principle earlier, but wasn't there a bit of a disconnect between that idea and like the early days of mass production, like Ford and the assembly line?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the book, it points out how traditional mass production really put efficiency like top priority.
Yeah.
Almost at the expense of worker morale, creativity, all that.
I can see how that wouldn't be a great place to work, feeling like just a cog in the machine, Yeah.
Exactly, like no room for input or growth.
Yeah.
But Toyota, they flipped the script.
Okay, how so?
They recognized that respecting and empowering employees, it wasn't just the right thing to do ethically, it was the key to continuous improvement. They actually created a system where workers were encouraged to identify problems, suggest solutions, and just constantly refine the way they worked.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So how they actually put that into practice? Like, what are some key elements of this Toyota way, so to speak?
So one of the, I guess, most well-known elements is the Kanban system.
Right.
Think of it as a visual signal, helps teams communicate, keep materials flowing smoothly, avoiding unnecessary piles of stuff everywhere.
Right, I've seen those Kanban boards in action, keeping
Yeah.
things moving efficiently.
Yeah, and with that emphasis on worker empowerment, right? It's not just top-down control. It's about making everyone feel like they're contributing. And another big one is Kaizen.
Kaizen, right. Small incremental changes over time.
Exactly. Instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, boil the ocean, they're making these small tweaks lead to big improvements.
Makes a lot of sense.
And these ideas, they might seem like common sense now, but back then, revolutionary. And the book traces how those concepts kind of gradually spread, from Japan to the West.
And that's where these CEOs we're going to be talking about come in, right? They're the ones who saw the potential of lean and figured out how to adapt it to their own companies.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And as we go through these stories, you'll see they weren't afraid to challenge the status quo, experiment, really try new ways of working.
Okay, I'm ready. Now, before we get too deep into those stories, you mentioned one about a CEO's bronchitis sparking a company-wide transformation. I mean, how does that even happen? Bronchitis leads to lean.
Right. So this story is about Carl Wadenston. He's the CEO of Vibco. They make industrial vibrators. And back in 2001, he's home, sick with bronchitis. Now, this is unusual for him. He never missed work.
I can relate. Got to keep things moving. What's this got to do with lean, though?
So while he's home, he gets this call, right? Frantic customer service rep dealing with a very, very upset customer.
Oh, sounds like trouble.
Big trouble. The customer was promised a part, urgently needed, but it's nowhere to be found.
Oh, logistical nightmare. Been there.
Exactly. And this gets Waldenston thinking, right? He realizes the problem, it isn't just with production control, it's the whole organization. Like they're operating without a clear understanding of how their work actually impacts the customer.
So one frustrated customer basically kicks off a whole lean transformation.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And this highlights a key principle, I think, of lean leadership, turning problems into learning opportunities, not just putting out fires, figuring out the systemic issues that need addressing.
Okay, I see the connection, but how did he even start to fix things? Did Wadenston have a lean background at this point?
He didn't. At first he thought, Okay, I'll just hire like a super-duper production system guy.
Bring in the expert,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, makes sense, right. But then talking to a friend who is also trying to hire a similar expert, the friend mentions this concept called single-minute exchange of die, SMAD.
Okay, SME, I'm familiar with that. It's about making those changeovers faster, right? Enables smaller batch sizes, and you can respond to customer needs quicker.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, Waddenston, he's self-proclaimed accounting cynic, but he actually embraces this concept and starts implementing SMA principles throughout his company.
So instead of hiring the guru, he becomes the lean champion himself.
Yeah, pretty big shift for him. And it highlights how lean isn't about hiring consultants. It's about leaders, understanding it themselves, driving the change personally.
Makes sense. Did this SME magic work?
It did. They focused on one key product line, implemented SMED, drastically reduced setup time, from hours down to minutes.
Wow, that's impressive. But what about the employees? How'd they react to all this change? Change management's a big part of any transformation, right?
Absolutely right. At first, there was some skepticism, of course, right? It's a big change in their way of working. But as they started seeing the results, things shifted.
Seeing is believing, right?
Yeah. And the book talks about how this early success, it created momentum, almost a sense of excitement around lean within VIBCO. It's like, okay, we can do this. Let's tackle other areas.
Okay, so one success leads to another. Pretty soon, the whole company is on board. It's like that ripple effect.
Exactly. And it's a pattern we see in a lot of these CEO stories throughout the book, different industries, same kind of thing.
Now, you mentioned the book covers stories from a bunch of different industries. I'm curious about the healthcare examples. Healthcare is so complex. How do these manufacturing-inspired ideas even translate?
Yeah, it's a different world for sure. But those core principles,
Yeah.
right? Focusing on the customer, or in this case, the patient, eliminating waste, empowering employees, those are universal.
Okay, I get that. But healthcare has its own unique challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest. The culture. Traditionally, it prioritizes physician autonomy over, process improvement. Doctors, highly trained, they're not used to having their decisions questioned.
Yeah, I can see how that would make things tricky. So how did these healthcare CEOs even navigate that, get buy-in from doctors?
So the book shows some fascinating examples of healthcare CEOs building trust, collaboration, showing the benefits of lean for everyone, patients and staff. One story that stands out is Gary Kaplan, CEO of Virginia Mason Medical Center in Seattle. His drive to bring lean into healthcare, it comes from personal experiences, including the death of his father from a medical error.
Wow, that's a powerful motivator.
It was. He knew things could be better, and he was determined to find a way. He and his team, they start studying the Toyota production system, other lean principles, and they're blown away by what they discover.
What struck them the most?
It was the level of respect, empowerment. Like at Toyota, every worker, no matter their job, was encouraged to identify problems, suggest improvements. They saw those same concepts, respecting people, eliminating waste, striving for that continuous improvement. They saw it could apply to patient care, patient safety.
Okay, I see the connection. But how do you even get started? Healthcare's not like building cars. Did they just jump in and start changing things?
No, very deliberate approach. First, Kaplan takes a group, key managers, doctors, sends them on a trip all the way to Japan, visit Toyota, other lean companies.
Right, to the source. I love it. What'd they learn?
So they see Toyota's Accord system. Any worker can stop the line if there's a quality issue. This resonated with Kaplan. Like, healthcare needs that, a way for staff to flag potential safety problems.
Yeah, in healthcare, mistakes, they can have serious consequences.
No kidding. So they implement their own version of this Accord called the Patient Safety Alert, PSA policy. Gives anyone at Virginia Mason the authority, even the duty to stop a process, even if it meant questioning a doctor.
Wow, big cultural shift for healthcare.
Huge. Took a lot of trust-building education. But Kaplan, his team, they were committed to creating that culture where everyone felt safe to speak up.
And did it work, this healthcare and Accord?
It did. The PSA policy significantly improved patient safety at Virginia Mason. Less errors, fewer adverse events. And they created this culture where staff felt comfortable raising concerns, no fear of getting in trouble.
That's really impressive, taking something from manufacturing and making healthcare safer.
Yeah, very cool. And the book has other examples, CEOs using lean to improve patient flow, reduce wait times, all that.
This really makes you think about how adaptable lean is. It's not just about factories. It's a whole way of thinking about work, about leadership.
Totally agree. And the book doesn't stop there. It goes into the startup world, which is a very different environment. Right?
Now that I'm curious about Startups are all about speed, agility, lean's about long-term incremental improvement. How do those two things even go together?
It's a great question. And the book talks about how those core lean principles, focusing on the customer, eliminating waste, learning fast, they're super valuable for startups.
So not throwing the move fast and break things mentality out the window, but using lean to make it even better.
Exactly. One concept the book brings up is the lean startup, popularized by Eric Ries.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Quickly testing assumptions, iterating based on feedback, avoiding that whole building something nobody wants thing.
That's it. The lean startup minimizes waste. And the book has great examples of startups using it successfully. Like E-Leather, a company that takes those leather scraps and recycles them into a high-quality, sustainable alternative. Tough market to break into.
Yeah, how did Loon help them?
Well, E-Leather used it to guide their product development, manufacturing, even their go-to-market strategy, baked into their DNA. And one key thing, rigorous Kaizen process.
Kaizen keeps coming up.
Right, that constant striving to improve, that's the heart of lean. And for E-Leather, it helped them scale up while keeping that focus on quality, efficiency.
And the CEO, what was their role?
So Chris McBean, he's the CEO. He was a big lean advocate from day one, believed it was essential for growth, for success.
Not just a passive observer, he was really pushing lean.
Totally. He was in Kaizen events, encouraging employees to get involved, making sure that lean thinking was in every part of their operations. The book really emphasizes that for lean to work, the CEO has to be a true believer, not just talking the talk.
It's been fascinating seeing how these CEOs from totally different backgrounds, industries, they've all embraced lean thinking as a driver of their success.
It is, and the book's honest about the challenges, the complexity of implementing lean. It's not a quick fix, right? It's long-term commitment, willingness to challenge the status quo, and that deep respect for people.
But the results, as we've seen, they can be pretty amazing. Now, for something completely different, you promised a story about lean and March Madness. I'm ready to hear how those two things connect.
Okay, so this one takes us into the world of Barry Wemler, global manufacturing engineering consulting firm. This story, it starts with leadership and culture, not just operational stuff.
Interesting. Building a different kind of workplace.
Exactly. So Bob Chapman, the CEO of Barry Wemler, he has this realization one day, observing his employees. He's walking through the company cafeteria early morning and notices a group gathered around a TV. They're watching highlights from the previous night's March Madness games.
March Madness brings people together.
Right. And Chapman, he's struck by their energy, their engagement. They're laughing, talking, really enjoying each other. But as it gets closer to 8 a.m., he notices a shift. Their energy drains away, they get ready for work.
Like flipping a switch from their personal selves to their work selves.
Exactly. And it gets him thinking, why can't work be more like March Madness? Why can't people feel that same level of enthusiasm, engagement in their jobs?
That's a powerful question. And did this lead him to lean?
It did. But not in the way you might expect. He wasn't initially drawn to the tools and techniques. He was drawn to lean's focus on people, respect, and continuous improvement.
More about the philosophy than the mechanics.
Exactly. He thought a workplace where people feel valued, respected, empowered, that will ultimately lead to better results.
Makes sense. But how did he put this into practice?
He started by having conversations with his employees, what mattered to them at work and life. And out of those conversations, they developed this set of guiding principles of leadership, became the foundation for their unique approach to lean.
What were some of those principles?
They focused on trust, respect for individuals, teamwork, the importance of everyone having a meaningful role. Really different from traditional top-down management.
Creating a culture where everyone felt valued, empowered. How did the employees respond?
At first, skepticism, of course. It's a big change. But as they started to experience this genuine care, respect that Chapman and his leadership team were showing, things began to change.
I bet actions speak louder than words.
For sure. And the book points out that this focus on people, on culture, it didn't hurt their business results. Barry Wemler actually saw big improvements, productivity, quality, customer satisfaction, all after adopting this unique brand of lean.
So happier employees and a more successful business. Win-win. It shows that putting people first isn't just the nice thing to do. It can really drive better results.
Absolutely. And it challenges that whole idea that you got to choose, right?
Yeah.
Be people-centric or results-oriented. They proved you can have both.
This has been fascinating, seeing lean applied in such different ways. Manufacturing, healthcare, startups, March Madness.
And we've just scratched the surface. Lean is more than just a set of tools. It really changes how organizations operate, how leaders lead. But there's more to explore.
I'm ready. Join us for part 2 of our deep dive into the Lean CEO, where we'll really get into the specifics of lean leadership, that mindset shift that's needed to build a sustainable lean culture. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Lean CEO. As we've been talking about these stories, it's really striking me how much more there is to lean leadership than just knowing the tools, the techniques. It's like a whole different mindset.
Yeah, you're picking up on a key theme from the book. It's not just about implementing Kanban boards or running those Kaizen events. It's about really embodying, I think, a way of thinking, a way of being.
Okay, so what does that look like, this lean mindset? What qualities set these lean CEOs apart?
One that comes up a lot, it's humility. These leaders, they aren't afraid to say, hey, I don't have all the answers. They're constantly learning, personally and within their organizations.
That's interesting. You'd think a CEO, right, they'd need to project confidence, certainty, but you're saying it's more about vulnerability, a willingness to learn from mistakes, even in front of their teams.
Exactly. And one of the best examples of this is Art Byrne, former CEO of Wiremold. He's like a lean legend, but he's very open about the fact that he didn't start out as an expert.
Okay, so how did he get started with lean?
So Wiremold, early 1990s, they were struggling, lots of competition, and their old ways of manufacturing just weren't cutting it anymore. Byrne knew they had to change, but he wasn't sure what that change should be.
Sounds familiar. A lot of these CEOs face some kind of crisis, right? Force them to rethink things.
It's true, necessity really is the mother of invention, or in this case, lean transformation. Byrne starts reading about different management approaches, and he comes across this thing called the Toyota production system.
And that was his light bulb moment.
It was. He's amazed by Toyota's results and really intrigued by that whole philosophy of respecting people, empowering them to continuously improve.
So he decides to try it at Wiremold.
He did. But he doesn't just jump in head first. First, he visits Toyota plants in Japan, sees it all in action.
Another CEO field trip. Seems like a common theme. What did Byrne take away from that experience?
Oh, it was transformative for him. He saw how deeply ingrained that culture of continuous improvement was at Toyota, and he decided he wanted to bring that same culture back to Wiremold.
So he comes back, all fired up, ready to leanify the company.
He did, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. There was resistance. Employees were skeptical of these, quote-unquote, Japanese ideas.
That makes sense. Change is hard, especially it seems like it's coming from a completely different culture.
Exactly. Byrne had to be patient, had to be persistent. He started small, implementing lean in one pilot area, and made sure to involve employees every step of the way.
So he was showing them how lean could work, not just telling them.
Exactly. And as they saw the results, better quality, faster lead times, a more engaged workforce, that resistance began to fade.
And I'm guessing Byrne's humility played a role in this too.
Absolutely. He was open about the fact that he was learning right alongside everyone else. He wasn't pretending to be some kind of lean guru, just a leader committed to finding a better way.
I can see how that would help build trust with his employees.
It did. And that's a key lesson for any leader going through a lean transformation. It's not about knowing all the answers. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels safe to try things, learn, and grow.
This brings to mind another aspect of lean leadership we talked about earlier, that whole seeing the big picture thing. It's not just about optimizing individual processes, but about understanding how everything fits together, how it all works toward a common goal.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the tools lean CEOs often use to develop that big picture view is value stream mapping.
Oh, right, that map of all the steps in creating a product or service. I could see how that'd be helpful in spotting bottlenecks, areas for improvement.
It is. And by mapping out those value streams, CEOs can really see how different departments, different functions are interconnected. Helps break down silos, encourages collaboration.
So it's not just about improving processes, it's about aligning the whole organization.
Exactly. Value stream mapping helps everyone understand how things get done and how their work contributes to the overall goal. And lean CEOs aren't just mapping the current state, they're thinking about that ideal future state too.
So they're always challenging the status quo, always looking for ways to make things better. This reminds me of a story from the book about a CEO who took a very unconventional approach to value stream mapping.
You must be thinking of Pat Lancaster, the co-founder of Lantec.
That's the one. He used value stream mapping to expose the limitations of traditional accounting, right?
Exactly. Lancaster was a self-proclaimed accounting cynic. He actually thought that standard cost accounting was preventing Lantec from improving.
Wow, taking on one of the most fundamental tools of business. What led him to that conclusion?
He felt like traditional accounting, it didn't show the true costs of their operations. Made it hard to make good decisions about pricing, which products to offer, even how to improve their processes.
So he felt like they were making decisions based on incomplete information. How did value stream mapping help?
Well, Lancaster realized that mapping their value streams would give them a much clearer picture of how materials and information were actually flowing. And this would help them see the waste and inefficiencies that their accounting system was hiding.
They were looking at their processes through a new lens. What did they discover?
Their accounting system was treating all costs as if they could change, when in reality, many of them were fixed. This led to some bad decisions, like stopping production of products that seemed unprofitable based on the accounting numbers, but were actually helping to cover those fixed costs.
So they were making decisions based on bad data.
Exactly. Lancaster's insight, which came from value stream mapping, was that they needed a whole new way of thinking about costs. They ended up adopting a system called lean accounting, designed specifically to support lean principles.
Interesting. So what's different about lean accounting?
It focuses on how well value streams are performing, instead of looking at individual departments or products. It also really values simplicity, transparency, and visual management.
So it's about making sure your accounting system actually aligns with your lean operations.
Exactly. And for Lantec, it was a game changer. They were able to make much better decisions, and they saw significant improvements because of it.
This really highlights how lean leadership isn't just about being good at managing people, it's about being a systems thinker, understanding how everything in an organization is connected.
I agree. And lean CEOs are especially good at connecting the dots between things that might seem completely separate. They understand that a change in one area can have a ripple effect through the entire system.
They're thinking about those second and third order consequences.
Exactly. That's super important in lean, where small changes can make a big impact. This reminds me of another story from the book about a CEO who uncovered a hidden bottleneck in their company's engineering process.
Oh, you're talking about Gene Cunningham, right? The former CFO of Lantec.
That's right. She noticed that engineers were wasting a ton of time waiting for approvals.
But Cunningham wasn't an engineer. She was a finance person. How did she even notice that?
She was walking through the engineering department one day, just watching how the work flowed. And she saw all these engineers just sitting around waiting for their designs to get approved.
So she was doing a Gemba walk. It just shows that anyone, no matter their role, can find opportunities for improvement just by observing and asking questions. What did she do about it?
She dug in and found out that the approval process was super complicated, involved multiple layers of management, and a ton of paperwork.
Classic bureaucracy.
It was. And it was really slowing things down. So Cunningham worked with the engineers to streamline the process, got rid of unnecessary steps, reduced the number of people who needed to approve things, and moved to a more digital system.
Cutting through the red tape.
Exactly. And as a result, the engineers were able to get their designs approved way faster, which sped up the whole product development cycle.
It highlights the importance of collaboration between different departments in Lean. It's not just about making your own department better, it's about working together to improve the flow of work across the whole organization.
Totally. And lean CEOs are great at encouraging this kind of collaboration. They build a culture where people feel comfortable sharing ideas and working together, even if they're from different departments.
Which is easier said than done, especially in big companies. How do they do that?
The CEOs in the book have come up with some pretty creative ways to break down those barriers and encourage collaboration. Things like creating cross-functional teams, establishing shared goals and ways to measure progress, and even restructuring the whole organization to align around value streams.
Sounds like they're not afraid to shake things up a bit to make sure everyone's working together.
Right. It all comes back to that key idea of building a culture of continuous improvement.
And that's where leadership really comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's the CEO who sets the tone and creates that culture.
Absolutely. The CEOs in the book have put systems in place for gathering feedback, recognizing innovation, and sharing best practices. They also invest in training to help their employees develop the skills they need to continuously improve.
Sounds like a lot of effort. But is it really possible to keep that momentum going over the long term?
It's definitely not easy, But the book features some CEOs who have managed to do just that. They've made lean a core part of their companies, and they've built leadership teams who are committed to keeping it going.
It's inspiring to see that kind of dedication. What's really striking me is that lean leadership isn't just about skills and knowledge, it's about character and values.
I agree, there are certain qualities that these lean CEOs have that are essential for building a sustainable lean culture.
We talked about humility and a willingness to collaborate. Are there any other traits that stand out?
Another important one is courage.
Courage. In what sense?
Well, lean leaders often have to make tough decisions, challenge the way things have always been done, and push for change, even when it's uncomfortable. They need the courage to stand up to resistance and stay the course, even when things get tough. The book tells a great story about Dan Ariens, the CEO of Ariens Company. He got a ton of pushback when he decided to get rid of their piece rate incentive system, which had been around for decades.
Right. We talked about him earlier. He realized that the piece rate system, even though it seemed like a good way to motivate workers, was actually discouraging teamwork and continuous improvement.
Exactly. The piece rate system was deeply embedded in their culture. Employees thought it was crucial for productivity, but Ariens saw that it was encouraging people to focus on their own output instead of working together to improve the process.
So it was creating a culture of competition, not collaboration, which goes against everything lean is about.
Exactly. It was making it really hard to implement lean. So Ariens made the tough decision to eliminate the piece rate system completely.
Wow, that must have been a really hard decision to make. How did people react?
There was definitely resistance. Employees were worried about their paychecks, and some even threatened to quit.
So what did he do?
He knew it was the right decision for the long-term success of the company, even if it was painful in the short term. He spent a lot of time explaining his reasoning to employees and listening to their concerns.
So he was really transparent and empathetic.
He was. He also created a new compensation system that rewarded teamwork, skill development, and the overall performance of the company.
So he tied their compensation to their lean values. Did it work?
It did. After some initial bumps, the transition went pretty smoothly. Ariens' company saw major improvements in productivity, quality, and employee morale.
That's a great example of how lean leadership isn't just about making decisions that people like. It's about making the right decisions for the company, even when they're tough.
Absolutely. And it shows how important it is to have a clear vision, to communicate it well, and to build trust with your employees.
As we've been talking about these stories, it's become clear that there's no one right way to be a lean leader. Every CEO had to figure out how to apply the principles to their own specific situation.
Yeah, there's no magic recipe. It's about understanding the principles, trying things out, learning from what happens, and adapting. Being a lean leader is all about continuously learning and growing.
And speaking of learning and growing, in addition to the stories of CEOs leading within their companies, the book also shows them going beyond their own organizations to promote lean thinking and share their experiences. They're almost like lean ambassadors.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of these CEOs see how powerful lean can be and want to spread the word. They're writing books, giving talks, advising other companies, and even trying to influence public policy to encourage lean thinking in different areas.
It's interesting how their passion for lean goes beyond their own businesses.
Yeah, it's like they're not content with just improving their own organizations. They want to see these principles used to solve problems and create value everywhere.
Can you give us an example of a CEO who is doing that?
One that comes to mind is John Toussaint, the former CEO of ThedaCare, a healthcare system in Wisconsin. He's become a leading voice for using lean in healthcare, arguing that it can really improve patient care and make healthcare more sustainable.
He's the CEO we talked about earlier who took his team to Japan to study Toyota, right?
That's right. That trip was really important for him and sparked his passion for lean. He saw how these principles could be adapted to the unique challenges of healthcare, and he's dedicated himself to sharing what he learned and encouraging others to start their own lean journeys.
So how's he doing that?
He started the ThedaCare Center for Healthcare Value, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting lean healthcare. He's also written several books on the topic, including On the Mend, Revolutionizing Healthcare to Save Lives and Transform the Industry. And he travels around, speaking at conferences and workshops, sharing his insights.
Wow, he's really become a thought leader in this field. What are some of his key messages?
He emphasizes patient-centered care, getting rid of waste, and giving frontline staff the power to solve problems. He believes lean is essential for creating a healthcare system that's more efficient, effective, and compassionate.
It's great to see someone so passionate about using lean to make a difference in healthcare. Are there any other CEOs who come to mind who've become lean ambassadors?
Another one is Jeffrey Liker, a professor of engineering at the University of Michigan. He's not a CEO himself, but he spent his whole career researching and writing about the Toyota production system. His book, The Toyota Way, is a classic in the lean world, and he's worked with companies all over the globe, helping them implement lean.
So he's more of an academic, but he's playing a key role in spreading knowledge about lean.
Exactly. He's like a bridge between the academic world and the practical world, helping people understand and use these concepts.
What are some of the key things he emphasizes?
He stresses long-term thinking, continuous improvement, and building a culture of respect and collaboration. He believes lean isn't just about tools and techniques. It's a whole philosophy that can change organizations and create a better world.
It's inspiring to see these lean CEOs promoting lean and trying to get other people excited about it. It shows how much they believe in its power to make a positive impact.
Totally. It's like they're not just running businesses, they're leading a movement for positive change.
As we've been talking about these lean CEOs, it struck me how many of them are driven by a strong sense of purpose. It's not just about making money or hitting targets. It's about making a difference in the world.
Yeah, it's like they've tapped into something deeper that motivates them beyond the typical business goals.
So it's not just about being efficient. It's about making a positive impact on employees, customers, and society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book shows some CEOs who are really doing that. Like, there's a story about a CEO who used lean principles to help his company become more environmentally sustainable.
Oh, I'm always interested in hearing about companies that are both profitable and sustainable.
It's a tough balance to strike, but lean can be a powerful tool for achieving both.
Really? How so?
Well, remember that eliminating waste is one of the core principles of lean. And waste isn't just about materials or time, it's also about energy, water, and other resources.
So reducing waste means saving money and reducing your environmental impact. That's a great connection.
It is. And the book has a bunch of examples of companies using lean to reduce their carbon footprint, save water, and minimize their impact on the environment.
That's encouraging. So lean isn't just good for business, it can be good for the planet too. It makes me think about the role of the CEO as a change maker, someone who's not just leading their company, but also using their position to make a positive impact on the world.
That's a powerful idea. And the book highlights this idea with the story of Bob Chapman, the CEO of Barry Wemler, who we talked about earlier. He's become a big advocate for a more human-centered approach to business, one that's focused on purpose.
Right. He's the one who believes work should be more like a basketball game, more fulfilling and engaging.
Exactly. And he's done a great job of creating that kind of culture, Barry Wemler. But he's not satisfied with just changing his own company. He's challenging traditional ideas about business and leadership, pushing for businesses to be more socially responsible.
So he's trying to change the game, not just play it differently.
He is. And he's not the only one. More and more CEOs are embracing this purpose-driven approach.
Yeah.
They're using their companies to do good in the world and showing that business and ethics don't have to be at odds with each other.
This makes me realize that lean leadership isn't just about being a good manager, it's about being a good citizen. It's about recognizing that businesses have a responsibility to society and using your influence to make things better.
I love that way of putting it. Lean leadership is about more than efficiency and profits. It's about creating a better future for everyone.
As we've been discussing these lean CEOs and their journeys, I've noticed that lean thinking seems to have a lot in common with personal growth. A lot of the same principles apply.
That's a really interesting observation. Lean is all about constantly getting better, and that applies to individuals just as much as organizations.
Exactly. It's about being aware of yourself, figuring out what you can improve, and taking action. It's about being open to feedback, learning from your mistakes, and always trying to be better.
And just like in Lean, the journey of personal growth never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to improve, and more to achieve.
That makes me wonder if there are any lean techniques we can use in our own lives.
There are. One powerful tool is A3 thinking, which is named after the size of paper Toyota engineers used for problem solving.
Okay, so it's a lean problem-solving method. How does it work?
The A3 process helps you define a problem, figure out what's causing it, come up with solutions, and make a plan to take action. It's systematic and data-driven, but it also uses visuals and encourages collaboration.
So you're saying we could use this to tackle our own personal challenges?
Absolutely. Imagine you're having trouble sticking to a workout routine. You could use the A3 process to clearly define the problem, figure out why you're not exercising regularly, brainstorm solutions, and develop a plan to address the things that are getting in your way.
I've never thought about using lean thinking in my personal life like that before.
It's a really powerful approach, and it's not just for solving problems. You can also use it for setting goals, making decisions, and even reflecting on your experiences.
That's amazing. Are there any other lean tools we can use for personal growth?
Another one is Kaizen, which we've talked about a lot. It's about continuously improving by making small, incremental changes over time. Instead of trying to change everything at once, you focus on making small, sustainable improvements.
So it's about focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
Exactly. It's about having a growth mindset and always looking for ways to learn and get better.
This makes me realize how often we set ourselves up for failure by setting unrealistic goals or trying to do too much at once. Kaizen seems like a much more sustainable approach.
It really is. It encourages patience, persistence, and self-compassion as you work toward your goals.
It's almost like a philosophy of self-compassion applied to personal growth.
I like that. Kaizen recognizes that we're all on a journey of continuous improvement, and it's okay to stumble along the way.
As we've been talking about these lean CEOs, I've noticed that a lot of them had mentors who helped them.
That's a great point. It shows that being a lean leader isn't about going it alone. It's about building relationships, finding people to guide you, and supporting each other's growth.
Creating a community of learners.
Exactly. And that's just as important in our personal lives. Having mentors, coaches, or even friends who support you, encourage you, and hold you accountable can make a big difference in helping you reach your goals.
It seems like lean thinking is really a way of life, not just a set of business tools. It's about improving ourselves and the world around us.
I totally agree. And the book does a great job of showing how these principles can be used in all sorts of areas, from personal growth to making a difference in society.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We've covered so much, from the practical side of lean to its deeper meaning and personal applications.
We've seen how lean is more than just tools. It's a mindset, a philosophy, a way of thinking and living.
But the journey doesn't stop here. Join us for the final part of our deep dive into the Lean CEO, where we'll explore the challenges and rewards of building a truly sustainable lean culture. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Lean CEO. We've been on quite a journey exploring these stories of leaders, how they've embraced lean thinking, really transforming their organizations.
It has been, and in this final part, we're going to shift gears a little, look at the long game. How do you build that lean culture so it's not just a flavor of the month, but a sustainable, way of doing things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's easy to get some early excitement going, see a few quick wins with lean, but how do you make it stick? How do you prevent it from being just another management fad that fizzles out after a while?
Yeah, good question. The book gives some great advice from CEOs who've really embedded lean into their companies. One thing that comes up a lot is the need to connect lean to the organization's core values, like its purpose. It can't just be a separate thing.
So it's not just tools and techniques, it's like making lean part of the company's DNA.
Exactly. It has to become who they are, not just something they do. A great example of this is Vermeer Corporation. They make agricultural and industrial equipment.
Right, Vermeer. We touched on their story a bit earlier. They were struggling with those unpredictable ups and downs in demand.
Right, those volatile demand cycles. Tough to keep things efficient and maintain quality when you never know how many orders you're going to get. They often had way too much inventory or were scrambling to catch up.
A classic lean problem. How'd they tackle that?
So their lean transformation started in the early 2000s with their CEO, Marianne Dringa. They started with basic lean stuff, reducing lead times, improving inventory turnover, and empowering employees. But what made Vermeer different was how committed they were to applying lean thinking outside the factory.
Oh, that's interesting. Where else did they use it?
They brought it into their sales department, which was a bold move. They actually trained their salespeople on lean principles, helped them understand how their sales practices impacted production.
So it wasn't just about closing deals, it was about thinking about the impact on the whole system.
Exactly. And it made a huge difference. They were able to smooth out those order spikes by working with their dealers, created a much more predictable flow.
It's like cross-functional lean thinking. It goes way beyond just manufacturing.
And for Vermeer, it was really key to building that sustainable lean culture. They understood that lean was a way of thinking, a mindset that could help them everywhere. This approach, it really paid off during the 2009 recession.
That's right. I remember reading that while their competitors were struggling, they managed to stay profitable, even grow.
It's a great example of how resilient a lean organization can be. Their success really shows how important it is to connect lean with core values and purpose.
For Vermeer, it wasn't just about being efficient or making money. It was about creating a culture where everyone was always striving to get better. And that was rooted in their commitment to their customers, their employees, and their community.
That shared understanding of why lean is important is so crucial for any organization that wants to build a lasting lean culture.
Which brings us back to the CEO. They're the ones who set the tone, communicate the vision, and create the environment where lean can succeed.
Absolutely. Lean CEOs aren't just bosses giving orders, they're actively involved in making the transformation happen. They're participating in Kaizen events, going to the Gemba, asking tough questions, challenging the way things are done.
Leading by example.
Right. And they're investing in their leadership teams, making sure everyone understands lean and is committed to continuous improvement. That brings up an important point about succession planning. How do you ensure that lean culture continues even after the current CEO is gone?
That's a huge challenge, but so important if you want to see lasting success. What does the book say about that?
The book really emphasizes the importance of developing a strong pipeline of future lean leaders. It's about creating a pool of talented individuals who understand lean inside and out and are ready to take the reins.
So it's about ensuring you have people who can carry the torch.
Exactly. And that takes a sustained commitment to training, development, and mentorship.
You know, as we talk about these stories, it's clear that lean leadership is more than just skills and knowledge. It's about character. It's about values. What specific qualities do you see in these lean CEOs that help them build a lasting lean culture?
Well, we've already talked about humility, a willingness to see the big picture, and being collaborative. Another big one is courage.
Courage. What do you mean? Well, lean leaders often have to make tough choices, challenge long-held beliefs, push for change, and they need the courage to face resistance even when things get tough. The book tells this really inspiring story about Dan Ariens, CEO of Ariens Company. He faced a ton of pushback when he decided to get rid of the company's piece rate incentive system, which had been around forever.
Right. That system had been in place for decades, and a lot of people believed it was the only way to keep workers motivated and productive.
Yeah.
Why did Arians decide to get rid of it?
He realized that the piece rate system, while it seemed effective on the surface, was actually discouraging people from working together and coming up with ways to improve the process.
Exactly. People were competing with each other instead of collaborating, which is the opposite of lean.
So it was creating a culture of competition, not collaboration.
Exactly. And it was making it really hard for them to implement lean. So Arians decided to eliminate the piece rate system entirely.
Wow, that must have been a really hard decision to make. I can only imagine how people reacted.
People were not happy. They worried about how their pay would be affected, and some even said they'd quit.
So what did he do?
He knew it was the right thing to do for the long-term health of the company, even if it was going to be tough at first. He spent a lot of time talking to employees, explaining why he was making this change, and really listening to their concerns.
So he was really transparent and empathetic.
He was. And then he created a new way to compensate people that rewarded teamwork, developing new skills, and the overall success of the company.
So he aligned their pay with their new lean values. What happened?
It worked. There were a few bumps along the way, but overall the transition went really smoothly. And Arians Company saw big improvements in productivity, quality, and morale.
That's a great example of how lean leadership isn't just about making decisions that are popular. It's about making decisions that align with lean principles, even when it's hard.
Absolutely. And it shows how crucial it is to have a clear vision, communicate it effectively, and build trust with your people.
Thinking about all these stories, it seems like there's no one recipe for lean leadership. Each CEO had to figure out how to adapt the principles to their own situation.
That's so true. There's no magic formula. It's about really understanding the principles, experimenting, learning from your experiences, and adapting. It's a journey.
This deep dive into the lean CEO has been really eye-opening. We've seen how lean can transform businesses, empower employees, and make a positive impact that goes way beyond just the bottom line.
It has been inspiring to see how passionate these leaders are about lean and how dedicated they are to building a sustainable lean culture.
As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a question. What areas in your own work or even your life could benefit from a lean approach? What assumptions might you be holding on to that could be holding you back? I encourage you to explore these ideas, see how lean thinking can help you make things better, eliminate waste, and develop a mindset of continuous improvement.
And remember, lean is a journey. It's ongoing. There's always more to learn, more to improve, and more to achieve.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep improving, and keep making a positive difference.